How do we cultivate optimism? First of all, there's actually a cool little test on psychologytoday.com. I don't know if you guys browse that site ever, but once in a while I find a few cool articles there. And there's actually a personality test for optimism, and it's free. So you could check it out, but you could also share it with others in your organization so you'd have a similar assessment, good for a conversation. But basically, there are some very simple things you can do to cultivate optimism, right? It's like cultivating another component of your garden. The first thing is to learn how to specifically ask for it. When you are addressing an opportunity or a problem, start with this question. How do we look at the situation optimistically? Now, you can also look at the situation in other perspectives. You can look at it emotionally, you can look at it informationally, you can look at it any way that you want. But don't forget to ask, how do we look at this optimistically? How do we look at market data optimistically? When people say there's an affordability problem out there, I say that's true. There is an affordability problem out there for some people. That's an optimistic interpretation. For other people, it's not an affordability problem. And maybe I've just got to shift towards talking to other people than I had been talking to before. It doesn't mean I like the problem or that I'm giving up on it, but optimistically, I now have an option, a possibility. So I always ask myself, how do I look at the problem, the data, the situation, the moment optimistically? The second thing I do as a leader is I'm really aggressively, I guess I use the term aggressively, praising, recognizing optimism when I see it in my people. Whenever I see someone offering an optimistic evaluation of a circumstance, I want to just pause and say, hang on, everyone, before we dive into that, kudos to so-and-so for really bringing out the possibilities here, bringing out the optimism in a tough circumstance. Again, no one here is trying to put rose-colored glasses on every problem we have, but when we see a little of it, nurture it, encourage it, praise it, recognize it, call it out. In fact, I have been to awards sessions where people actually have recognized agents whose attitudes have consistently been positive and upbeat. How cool is that? Yes, we want to recognize production, but we also can recognize attitude as well. And then last but not least, try integrating optimism into your infrastructure. So how do you integrate optimism into your recruiting evaluation? Like even using that little quiz might be a tool to get an idea of the optimistic tendency, attitude of a prospective agent or manager. How do you build optimism into your training? How do you build it into your office meeting kickoffs? How do you build it into your newsletter as a filter? In fact, for those of you who use a lot of artificial intelligence, how could you just incorporate the word optimistic into your instructions? So you say, hey, ChatGPT, take a look at our newsletter for this week and make sure the language reflects an optimistic evaluation of the market. Just using the word can be enough to integrate it into certain infrastructure like recruiting, training, marketing, and other activities. So it's not hard to cultivate optimism. It's about bringing it to the forefront of your consciousness and then purposefully, intentionally making it part of your day. And how do you know if it's working? You'll see all sorts of good things. I'm not going to cover all of them, but basically, you'll see it in your people's attitudes. You'll see it in their confidence. You'll see it when people don't freak out about a mistake and they go, hey, that mistake's really a learning signal. We're going to optimistically interpret a mistake that we made. You'll probably see it in an increase in gratitude, in conversations and just emotions that you feel from others. And then, of course, inside yourself. When you start to more naturally expect the best out of others or out of circumstances, you will certainly see the ripple effect of building your optimism strength.